All right. So before we start the meeting, I want to quickly review some instructions on how this meeting will be conducted. Under the state's open meeting law, all votes during an online meeting must be taken by roll call. This will require each member to activate their microphone to give their vote and then turn their mic back off. When I call your name, you'll need to activate your mic and answer present and then turn your mic back off. So I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. Adam Bennett.
Present.
Heather Ellis.
Present.
Bridget Hansen.
Present.
Matthew Kondrachek.
Here.
Savannah Kyle.
Present.
Dina McDonald-Watchke.
Present.
And I know Megan Maui said she would be absent. So that concludes our roll call. Would someone like to put out, move to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting?
I
would
move
move.
to adopt the agenda.
Thank you,
Second that.
Heather. Perfect. We got a couple seconds. Awesome. So we have our agenda here for today. The next item on the meeting agenda is the acceptance of the minutes from our October 14th, 2021 meeting.
I move to accept the minutes.
Perfect.
Seconded.
All in
One-
favor?
Oh, aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Yay. All right. We got through the first three things. Look at us go. On to the next. So we've got a little presentation just to kind of show you a little bit about what's been happening since we all met last in October. First thing I want to show you guys, I know we mentioned at our last, I believe we mentioned at the last meeting, and if not, we also talked about at our, or I sent out an email about it, excuse me, was our dashboard that we were working with our downtown data analyst as well as communications to get out, and then got some feedback. So that is officially live. So our dashboard is up and running. This is our main page here, the animals and pets page. And then one of the main buttons at the top is now the view data dashboards. And so this connects right over to the Minneapolis data source with our own little splash page here. So this is our main page. Nothing looks probably too different if you guys looked at this before when we put it out, but it's got our little blurb about us, and then the little buttons where you can click on to learn more. So those are all up and live. Some of these are in our actually little next slideshow, but showing our live release rate comparison, year over year and then month over month. Oops, went too far. And then animal outcomes. Again, we'll see some of this more in our thing, but this gives the specific animals. So by day and then the animals and what type of outcome it was. So when folks are looking for a specific animal by animal ID, they can look and see, or they can filter it however they want. If they just want to see dogs, cats, others, right? It shows dogs and cats right off the bat, but you can add in or take out. You can look to see, I just want to see all the animals that came in as a surrender. So we can get rid of that. And, just see this or everything without, whichever. So there are a lot of fun little things you can play with on here. And then a little blurb about the outcomes. And then back to the intro page. There's also the little shelter pathways. So again, kind of showing a little bit about what we do. So the types of animals that we see that come in and the percentages. Where do they go once they are, work through the system with us, and those percentages in the little circle graphs. Adoptions by month, so you can see kind of the spikes and peaks there. And then stray dogs, showing that we have a 59% RTO, our return to owner percentage, 24% adoption, 11% transferred, and 6% humane youth of all the animals that are coming in, or all the dogs on that one specifically. Intake shows again what we're bringing in in kind of the little percentages and the little bubble graphs and why they came to us. So strays, again, that's still the biggest intake reason. The next being surrender. After that, wild animal intake. So when we're picking up our either deceased or, injured, ill wildlife, and then other creatures. And then kind of just talks about our typical intake process. And the cool thing is if you hover, you can see our stray dog calls on a heat map. So this shows where we've gotten all the different calls in what part of the city on there. So you can see it's kind of, pretty diverse as far as where we go. And then assessing animal providing treatment. So again, showing our numbers year over year for our stray dog intake. And then kind of what happens. So showing again RTOs year over year and outcomes year over year there. That when you hover over those. Community partners, this is mostly showing for our rescue partners, but also foster, since we've started expanding our fostering program. You can see from 2020 the animals that were transferred to foster, and in 2021 the animals that were transferred. So blue is birds, and then we have the green is cats, dark blue dogs, and then brown is other. And then foster animals, you can see that we've had how many, once we started tracking it in our system here, have gone out to foster over those years.
Those are animals that stayed in our care, but were in our foster homes, not somebody else's.
Correct.
And that's a brand new program for us.
Yeah, we did it on a very small scale, but this larger piece is partially due to expanding, as well as us adding in our found to foster program that has actually been more successful than we thought it would be with the animals that people are finding in the community, and then choosing to foster in their home during that stray period, and then either turning it in for adoption or then turning it back in to get spayed neutered usually, and then either they adopt or it goes up for adoption. I can't say that we've had more than maybe 2 that were ever not adopted by the person that found them, but it kind of streamlines that process and keeps them out of the shelter.
Great job.
Hugely successful. I think it's great.
Yes. Animal wellness, this is showing our vaccinations. So what we've done for the public, as well as just showing how much we've done in the shelter itself. So these are animals that for our shelter that were in our care. And then these are the ones we did for the public vaccine clinics between 2020 and 2021. And then also showing our spay neuters numbers over the years here. And then obviously with like 2020 and COVID, our intake was down. So our sterilization numbers were down, but just showing all the animals that we've been doing in-house. And then public health and safety. So that's a crazy map there, but you can actually pare it down too as you look, but it's showing, the types of calls that we're getting. So at-large calls are that dark blue, and assist would be like a police or fire or EMS or something where an animal's involved somehow, they're calling us out. Barking calls, bites or incidences, a deceased animal, so a DOA that we're picking up, a declared animal, so usually it's a check on the making sure that they're in compliance. Hold being an animal, stray or owned, that they're asking us to pick up or take in. An inspection would be like a permit. Investigation obviously is some sort of like welfare typically or other type of call, and then the gray being the wild. And you can see year over year 2020, these are the different, by same color, the number of those calls that we got, as well as then in 2021, the number of calls total and how they kind of broke up in there.
And
so
if you click on those, does it reduce everything else so you can just see brown or just see pink? Or
yes, you can
Okay,
do
thank you.
that. So yeah, you can do, I want to just see brown, the dead animals, or I want to see animals at large. So it makes it a little easier to look at.
Okay.
So kind of fun, cool thing to look at. Would still encourage you guys to check it out. This is a fluid thing for us, so it is absolutely something that we can add to as we go, especially as we find, more things that we want to share about our programs, as well as when we, come up with. Part of this is also alleviating some of our data requests. People will call in about a specific animal that they want to follow up on. They can go right online as long as they have that animal ID number and find that animal to look up exactly what happened, what day, etc. So it kind of alleviates some of that additional workload that wasn't time consuming. I mean, it was time consuming, but it was like, okay, you could easily get it if we just put it up there. So that's pretty cool that we've got that up and going now. And then the other piece we wanted to do was a little, again, statistic for you guys. So live release rates, again, similar to what we just saw on the dashboard, but just showing from 2014 through 2021, as well as in the first 2 months of 2022 here. And then from January of 21 through thus far into February of 22, what our live release rates have been.
What amazing progress you guys have made.
Thank you, Heather. It's been a lot of hard work, but good work. Animal intakes. So for last year, 986 dogs, 828 cats, 387 others, 135 birds, and 1 livestock. I think that was a pig, if I remember right. That we got in last year. So definitely still lower. We've been continuing to work on the managed intake model of bringing animals in and only trying to, again, bring in what truly really needs to be there if at all possible. Just between the time that we last met, our intakes, 349 dogs, 284 cats, 105 others, and 23 birds. There we go. Between 2020 and 2021, you can see our outcomes. So just pay in mind, it goes from largest to smallest. So it's not the exact same necessarily, I don't think, on there, although this happens to look fairly close. So adoption was still our highest in both years for the outcome types. Transfer was our second. RTO was the third. Euthanasia was fourth. And then the home expired, that is what the animals that are like put on our lost and found pages that are now being tracked in Chameleon. So we can, when we are putting or encouraging the public just to do their own postings of animals they've lost or found, that is something we now track. And that's what that is showing, just how many that we've expired out of that system. Relocate is for wildlife. Disposal would be a deceased animal request. Pickup, as you can see, other, so it's typically wildlife. Died in the shelter numbers, return to field numbers, and missing means something didn't code right, or it means that we actually, an animal was lost out of our care. And I cannot recall in 2020, I want to say we did have 1 cat that got away from an officer in the field. So I think that's how it ended up getting coded. And then Kennel Outcomes just for the last, kind of 3 months since we last met. So adoptions, return to owner, euthanasia, transfer, again, the home expire, disposal, relocate, and null means someone didn't enter something. So we've got some looking at to do to figure out who'd forgot to code something in there. Bites between 2020 and 2021. So you can see the types up here, animal to human. Exposure is a wildlife exposure, typically a bat, not always, could be some sort of wildlife that a human or other animal was exposed to. An animal to animal bite, an incident between between animals, or an incident between humans. So no bite, but there's some sort of aggressive incident. And then same things, just in their different categories here. And then this is showing the severity levels between the 2 years. So bodily harm, which is usually considered like a minor bite, is this blue. Exposure is the orange, which is our second highest on here. Incident is the red. Substantial harm is that teal, which unfortunately last year we had about double the amount of substantial harm in there.
So can you just tell them what that means by definition?
Substantial harm would be, trying to think how we word it between. So bodily harm is a pretty minor injury, like a scratch, a minor puncture. Substantial harm would be something that leaves temporary marks, but longer term. So it could be or permanent. And then great bodily harm is like permanent disfigurement or loss of an appendage or things like that. And then fatal is obviously where it resulted in something passing away. Now that includes animals. We have not had a human fatal, but we did have some animal to animal fatals. And then we have had, a small amount of the great bodily harms as well over the years. So that just kind of shows the different levels of cases that we're dealing with.
And here where it says incident, incident in that situation does not mean the same thing as incident in the other situation. Incident in this situation means there's no bite. Incident in this situation means that there's some bite, but it's not that bad.
Nope. That's just, incident is actually literally still an incident. We just have to code it in our system. So there is no bite that occurred in the incidences. That's just how many.
Yeah. So an incident would be your dog got loose, charged me down the street, but I managed to jump the fence and didn't get bit. So that's really an incident versus, you actually nailed me. So, Yeah, that's really the difference.
Yeah, it's really,
Thanks
it's
for
like they had to
clarifying.
take evasive action. Yeah. So if you look at, I believe these two numbers added would equal this one. So yeah, incident, there is no bite that occurred. And exposure does not mean obviously a bite occurred. Often it's just there's a exposure to a wild animal, and we have to observe a quarantine out of abundance of caution if we aren't sure if the animal was, bitten, if they had a little scuffle, or if the people were actually directly, in contact with the bat or not, since they don't always know, and that kind of thing. Citations and warnings. So in 2020, you can see our administrative citations and warnings. And then in 2021, again, administrative citations and warnings.
Heather had
Yep.
a question on the
Oh, go ahead,
previous
Heather.
screen.
I can't see the stuff. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You actually answered my question, so
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
Perfect.
Yep. I figured it out while you were explaining it. And I'm like, oh, I got it now.
Perfect. So this just shows our, just differences in citations over warnings. We've been moving to more warnings in the kind of the human animal social services model that we've been working on, in working with folks to get into compliance versus immediate or more harsh enforcement actions. So when we can, education and getting them, doing what we can to support them in getting into compliance. So getting their vaccines updated, getting a rabies, or, the license taken care of, that kind of stuff. So you can see most commonly, or a lot of it is, we do see a lot of the license required and leashing. Those are our two really big spots. And then public protection being the next. A public protection is usually involving in what happens in a bite case. So it's where their animal has, violated someone's right to be safe, kind of, in public. So you do see typically there's going to be more citations on those than warnings, due to the bite case
There's
and
an
things
actual
like that.
victim.
Correct. And then rabies vaccine required, permit, if they need a permit, don't have one, an animal declaration violation, animal and motor vehicle. So occasionally we're writing those ones. But you can see a lot more, again, warnings on permits, oopsies, than there are on citations and stuff. So just showing kind of what we've been doing there. Our calls, so this is all different activities that had just their first sequence. So they could have gone out 20 times on one of these calls, but just the initial call itself of what we got to count all those numbers. In 2020, our animal control officers got 9,156 calls. 2021, we got 12,215. And you can see the different types broken up here. So gray being our ACO investigations. So those are typically welfares. Could be aggressive animals. Lots of different things kind of fall in that bucket. These ones are our bites. This is DOA, or deceased animal pickup. These reds are the hold. So again, a hold stray or a owned animal they're asking us to pick up at large. So we've got loose dogs on there typically. The pink is the wild animal. So again, it's typically an injured wild animal injured or sick, they're asking us to pick up. Barking complaints are that color. The declared animals. So again, if they're going to be coded this way, this is usually the compliance checks or complaints that we're getting if they're not following the regulations needed to maintain their dangerous animal. An assist, again, is when we're getting requested by the police or fire, EMS, etc., to come out and work with them. Green is inspection. So that's when we're doing inspections for like permits and different things like that. Then it gets really small. And so obviously not as big. But again, declared animal stuff, criminal cases, a DOA follow-ups, community calls. So we're going out and doing something in the community. Of course, 2020 kind of ruined that a little bit. And then bite incident ones are on there as well.
Is there a way for this type of graph, like it has a legend, but that legend does not mean a lot to most people? I would just like people don't know what DOA means, etc. Is there a way of having like what that means?
Like a glossary?
With it? Like a glossary, or just like a little, like if you hover over it, it explains like what this is. Like this is like a dead on arrival animal that was, whatever.
Yes, that is something like in the dashboard where we have some of this stuff. Obviously not all of this is on there right now, but in the Tableau that it's coming from, that's done. This was just a PowerPoint that they put together for me. Okay. So I can't hover, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Great.
Yeah. And then admin calls. So we started tracking in 2020 when we got calls coming over, since we weren't able to just warm transfer calls to us from 311 a lot of times, or even 911. And then when we moved to appointment based, obviously lower staffing levels, or still low staffing levels, as well as our officers being dispatched by 911 dispatchers. We started tracking those administrative calls so we could get them in the system and then call folks back. So X other is kind of our catch-all. I mean, that can be everything from, I would like a vaccine appointment, I want to know about this case, which is really a data request, but it's kind of the catch-all. We've since then broken them up a little bit as we moved into it a little bit more. So you can see we added an RTO, which is the return to owner. So we added that later in 2020, so that's why there's not very many, but that is a good chunk of our admin calls. So you can see in 2021, our admin calls that were coded that. And then the really ugly color is our permit request, so we do get a lot of those. Admin report, that is typically, or was typically, utilized by our officers when they needed to take specific time to sit and write a longer report. A license request. So this is people calling about, I want to renew my license. I need to get a license. I've never done this before. I want you to mail me an application. I want you to do it over the phone, whatever it is. Those are what those green calls are for. When our ACOs have hearings, that's coded in there as well as one of their, what they're responding to. So that's in there. And then the little orange is the data request that typically goes down to city clerk's office, or is supposed to. Occasionally they come through us, so we end up having to code them and send it over. And then the blue is the adoption request calls. So that was one that we added later in 2020 and then had all of 2021 on. So you can see lots of different calls that our admin staff is handling that we never tracked before, just to help show a lot of the work that they're doing. So that's all that. Does anyone have any questions on anything else on there?
Not about the website. It's awesome. I'm very glad that you guys have made that. Nice work.
So I just want to make one statement. The Chameleon Control Group, let me just fix this. It's going to drive me crazy. The Chameleon Control Group was tasked several years ago with telling our story through data. And this is a result of that. And it's going to continue to grow. And I think they've done a phenomenal job. And I just wanted to recognize them for the work they've done. Danny happens to be on that team. And it's John Kilner, Melissa Mathis, Danny Jorger, Ann Thielen, and Nick Brambilla. Did I miss anybody? And Jay Young now has been added to the team. So those are the 5 people that are really making a difference here, and getting our story out there and being transparent and making sure our data is clean. And I think they've done a phenomenal job. So thank you, Danny.
Nice work.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Anything on there? Questions or anything? All right, then I think we're good to move on to number 5, a staffing update. Caroline, do you want to take it or you want me to?
Well, I'll start with mine and then I'll let you take over from there. So Mac is, with Danny's promotion into the shelter supervisor position, she's done a great job with that. She previously, sorry, my brain is in a fog, I think, was our volunteer coordinator, and that's left us a void there. We have recently done interviews, and we have hired a woman by the name of Madison. Is her last name Johnson? I can't even remember right now off the top of my head.
She got married. It's now Weisenborn.
Yeah. It used to be Johnson. Anyways, she comes to us. She has a background in zoology, as well as a background working with the volunteers there. She helped develop the program that they still utilize today in tracking all the health of the animals at the facility. She has a background in veterinarian business management. Yeah, I guess. And also, of course, volunteer coordinating and all kinds of stuff. She brings so much talent to the table, and she's super outgoing. She kind of reminds me, her personality, a little bit of Megan Maui, just that kind of outgoing personality. She loves community outreach. I think she's going to be a real asset to our team. And she starts on, sadly, Valentine's Day. I don't know how that ended up happening, but she starts
her choice.
February 14th. Danny,
she thought I was the mean one for making it happen, but she chose that date.
Yeah, Danny, I'm super excited about this and having her on our team. And then we also are hiring for 3 officers so Don and Tony aren't here to talk about that for you, but we have 3 vacant officer positions. And then Danny, you want to talk about your?
So the 3 officer positions, are those because people have left, or are those additional officers?
So
2
one
of
of the
them.
things,
Yep.
yeah, 2 of them are because Nancy Ingberg promoted up. Well, I don't know if it's a promotion, but she was ready to get off the street. And so she's now in a CSR position. And the other one had a baby recently. And with the situation, the environment that we're being forced to work in, she felt very unsafe. And so she's moved on to another position. And I think that you're seeing that all over the city right now with people, especially people who are in the field. They're really moving around right now because it's dangerous out there for us. So it is what it is. And then we have a 3rd position that is vacant because it's a brand new position. So
Yep, in
I
budget
suspect,
this year.
I don't know what's going to happen, but and also directors like me are poaching off of each other, to be honest, because there's just not a lot of people applying. So it's a lot of poaching going on in the city. So Danny, we have some maybe exciting. I don't know if you like it or not, but we're excited about it.
We'll start with, we did also lose Tila at our front counter. So we
That's
are
true.
hiring for another CSR.
Another poaching.
That's coming up in the next month or so. We will be starting that process. We also, let's see, we lost one of our full-time ACTs. So one of our part-times moved into full-time. And then we lost another part-time ACT. So we're right now at 3 full-time ACTs and 1 vet tech for all the care. However, with that, we were budgeted for a full-time, as it was called, pet case coordinator, or what we were calling our animal safety net coordinator, to bring on permanently in this year. Looking at everything as it is right now with our staffing, we felt it was more beneficial to take that position and actually fill it with a veterinary technician, so we could have a second vet tech on staff. And because that was underfilling the position, it was a lower grade, we were also able to get another part-time animal care technician out of the deal. So we will have 3 part-time animal care technicians coming on board in the very near future that we're working on hiring, as well as a full-time veterinary technician coming on board, in addition to the 1 that we already have. So it is shoring up our shelter a lot better, and hopefully going to help support the internal, obviously, things that we need to do on a day-to-day that we struggle with when we have lower staffing. And from there, at this point, we feel like we are able to manage and maintain the start of the programs we've begun for this ASN program, between myself, who's been doing it, and then hopefully with Madison in the volunteer coordinator position that I was already kind of juggling it there too, continuing to keep that going and then eventually expand as we also start to bring in more volunteers in different capacities with Madison on board, and kind of use volunteers a little bit more to help us expand and run that program.
Yeah,
so
I just I want to just add, we had to stabilize our capacity to care in the shelter, and we've gotten to this critical point now where we did not have the capacity to care for very many animals at the facility at the standards in which the community has become expected. They expect us to do, right? I mean, we could certainly warehouse animals and euthanize them like it used to be, but I don't think that's where the community wants. And so we just reached this critical situation where this particular, it just didn't make sense on a business level to have somebody in a position that's going to continuously build this program when we couldn't sustain what we had. Does that make sense? So we pivoted, which, you guys that know me well know that I can pivot on a dime when I need to. And this was one of those moments. And I can thank Danny and Tony Schendel. They actually brought this to me and said, we need to rethink this. And I wasn't happy because this is the, let's face it, the ASN coordinator is the more politically.
It's the dream.
Yeah, it's the dream, right? So, but sometimes your dream has to wait a minute, and that's where we're at. And it doesn't mean that position went away. It just means that we've reallocated the money for now, and hopefully we'll re-ask for more money next year in next year's budget for this. But it just wasn't. It just didn't make sense anymore. So, it was barely making sense to begin with. So that's where we're at. Heather, did you have a question?
Yeah, that was my, I think you answered it, which is that that means that you won't be able to fill that position this year, but you'll go back and ask for money to fill it next year.
Right.
Thank you.
And it doesn't mean that the program stops. I think it just means that we're going to move forward with the foster program. The volunteer coordinator position will have some very clear direction on what we want to build. The foster program, I think, is key right now to having sustainability within the ESN program. And that's something the volunteer coordinator can actually do for us. We don't necessarily need another person. But what I do need are bodies in the shelter that can actually build capacity of care into our system. And it's just, I mean, literally, we are, with the amount of time that we spend on every animal, with the staffing that we have, even when we're full staffed, we're limited to about 50 animals in the shelter at any one time that we can care for. And that's, when you think about a shelter that can house 300 animals, that's crazy that we can actually only care for 50 at a time. Does that make sense? Yep. Not that I want 300 animals in the shelter by any means, but.
Dina, did you have a question?
So the foster program, our capacity can grow even more.
I will say you guys hide it well that you're stressing behind the scenes, because I don't feel it when I'm there on my shifts. But I just wanted to, sometimes I thought about, you know how it's everywhere that it's so hard to get vet techs hired. Has the city, specifically our shelter, ever ventured into a program where we would basically, and maybe we don't have capacity to take something like this on, but we could actually train, especially more at need, maybe citizens, some of our marginalized groups, where we're offering an ability to kind of be a mentorship and train into a position with the city in animal care with us, whether it be one of our officers or a vet tech or animal care, some type of program where they're interested, they can come find out what it's all about and then get into a program where maybe we can help certify them.
We do have, that first makes me think of, we do have, the city in general has the Step Up as well as the Urban Scholar programs. So Step Up is for high school kids, and they can get internships with the city in various departments wherever they're kind of interested to work over the summers. And they are paid for that, and they can kind of get in. We have had Step Ups at the shelter where they worked primarily in the kennels, learning animal handling and care and all that good stuff. And then Urban Scholars is a little bit more broad, where they can come, they are either in college, so working on their bachelor's, or they can be post-college or just graduated from bachelor's. I think they can even be further out in their college endeavors as well to get into the program. But again, it's looking at where their interests are, although they don't specifically let you, sorry, I'm just having to readjust, pick your person so that they get to pick. They actually we had one last year, and she actually specifically helped us with helping us kind of build and research some of our community stuff for the safety net, looking at what kind of places and do we need to reach out to, or should we start working with or partner with, and that kind of thing. So it's possible in those avenues, but I don't think that's quite exactly what you're saying, though, as far as making it more.
I hear what she's saying, making it more, yeah. But we have worked with the U of M and tried to get students in to do little internships and stuff here, but I think a lot of it comes down to capacity and probably the type of veterinarian work that we're able to do at our facilities right at the time. Anyways, it's expanded probably since then, but at the time they wanted more diversity and a little bit more complex cases, where we send them a lot of our really, really ugly cases out. They'll either go on to rescue, or we'll send them to a specialist out in the field. So I think that was some of it. There wasn't a lot of interest there. And then as far as I know with the
like starting out, it would be awesome to be able to promote something in those communities, in the neighborhoods that distrust us the most as an organization, to be able to reach out and offer them a pathway to a really good city job. I mean, let's face it, working for Minneapolis, I see the benefits you guys get compared to what's on the market out there. And I mean, you guys are doing really, really well. And it would be awesome to be able to pathway someone who wouldn't normally have that direction, maybe. Whether that's our AOC officers in the field doing outreach and saying, you know, you'd make a really good, or going out into the schools and getting somebody in while they're young and, you know, be able to, I think you'd have an attachment to the community that they wouldn't want to break down the road. So it's kind of a win-win for all of us in terms of some longevity. But it's just one of the things I think about all the time when I'm out in our community. And I think about how great it would be if we could get more of those community members into our shelter to really see the proud work that goes on there and be a part of it.
The police department has a reserve program. And I think they do, right, Danny? A reservist program. And it's funny that you bring this up because Tony, one of my field supervisors and I were just talking, and I've talked about it for a long time, is creating a reservist program for animal control. And maybe that's a project that the board could help us with.
That would be awesome.
Because we, that's a huge project though, just so you know. There's probably a lot of moving parts. And that's probably one of the reasons we haven't tackled it, is that, you know, we had more pressing projects that we had, not that it's not pressing, but more pressing projects in the sense that we had, you know, animals dying in the shelter that we had needed to figure out how to like stop that. And just the ASN program in general, which is doing exactly what you're saying. But I think it's a great idea. And I actually think it's a great idea if you had a reservist program like that, where it would give us a pool of people that we've already trained to be able to step right into these vacant positions when they happen, or when we get new positions, a pool that we could pull from to hire into permanent jobs. So I will say the city really does embrace internship type programs. I mean, in the programs for the high school students and stuff, it's harder on a group like us because we're so small staffed, especially when you have the more immature people that need more hand-holding and supervision. That can be quite taxing for my staff, but I do think that there's certainly opportunity there. I don't know if the board has appetite for that project or not, but I would be game for it. We're going to talk about that in a minute though. So let's bring that back up in a few minutes. All right. Danny?
I don't know that I have anything else staffing wise. Am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
There's a lot of CSR, vet tech, ACTs. Yes, Heather.
Yeah, so I just have a question of why we do 3 part-time as opposed to 1 full-time and a part-time.
We have better ability for scheduling. So I can schedule a part-timer up to 28 hours a week on average, give or take. So even 2 part-timers give me more hours than 1 full-timer, and I don't have to pay benefits. So it does help out as far as schedule coverage. Even though I think hiring wise, it might be easier. It's been a little more difficult to find applicants, or as many applicants for part-time positions.
I would say that could be an issue.
So we did post initially a while, I have to remember, it closed just a little bit ago. We did some interviews. So we have a couple that we're working on right now, getting on board, and then we're going to reopen because we didn't have a ton of apps, but we did post, and we did actually have a few decent candidates that seemed like a good fit and were specifically interested in part-time, because that's in the posting. So we'll see. We're hopeful, but that is one of my concerns too, Heather, that it might be hard to fill 3 part-time positions right now.
But we've done it before, and it does give us more flexibility. You got to remember, Heather, we're trying to schedule for 7 days a week, and we're scheduling for more than 8 hours a day. So when you have, only have 4 positions, which is basically what we have, it's really hard to schedule that. I mean, people have to have a day off, and they call in sick, and they need vacation, and the part-time allows us to kind of it gives us a ton more flexibility in scheduling. That's the simple truth. And people do apply for it, and it's a great stepping stone to get in, because everybody knows it's hard to get into the city. So this is a great stepping stone to get into the city, and once they're in, they can move around. But It's just,
Yeah,
this
we've
is
had a
where
lot
we're
of
at.
our care techs go to ACOs, or like one of ours just went to a full-time position that opened up. But yeah, it is super helpful because I can give them a 4 to 5 hour shift only, you know, and they're helping us in the morning, and then when I don't need them as much in the evening. So yeah. There's
I was just curious if what the
yeah, so
reason
there's a
was.
little give and take on both ends.
Thank you.
Am I supposed to raise my hand first? Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Go, yeah, I don't think you can on yours, so go ahead.
I can't on my phone. I'm trying to switch over. Like, I can see your faces on my computer now. I got to that point. But I was wondering if we had tried to do any recruiting from the U of M, like veterinary school, of saying like, hey, you can do like, I don't know, 15 hours a week at Mac, and then like recruit a bunch of students.
For
That could be an
volunteer,
option.
for work, like hired work.
For work, yeah, like a work study
Mhm.
kind of thing, like work with the professors, because I think if we had veterinary students in there supporting too, that could be really amazing.
So we have had some. When we first
Okay.
started our vaccine appointments, there is on a volunteer basis, but they would come and assist our vets with our vaccine clinic appointments. And then we've had some that would come and shadow us and watch like surgery days. And then we've been trying to figure out how do we bring them in to be another like set of hands helping on like surgery days or vaccine
Yeah.
clinic days. So our staff, especially when we only had one vet tech, even though we're super pumped to have two pretty soon, you know, was like the only one there. And it was like, okay, we're always pulling a care tech to come help with vaccines or to help with surgery. And that's they're in the middle of cleaning and blah, blah, blah. So we have used that, but I think that's a great idea for me to post because my HR was actually asking me where else could I post. So if you have ideas for this part-time animal care tech stuff that we're putting out there, any extra ideas would be awesome. I've got some ideas, but I think U of M is a good one.
For the veterinary
The
students,
only
you might think about like having just a weekend only position because they don't have a lot of flexibility. But like
Right.
first through third year, they'd be like able to pick up weekends almost every time. And then for posting, I'm sure that it probably gets posted on the Friends of Mac Facebook page. Is that correct?
We have in the past
Okay.
put them up on the Friends of Mac, and then the city does do social media as well, as far
Okay.
as like different social media avenues that the city has that will post our jobs out on there too.
Okay. And it might be worthwhile. Megan has much better current rescue connections than I do. It might be worthwhile asking
Yeah.
to see if you can put it on, like sometimes there's like internal message boards for different rescues to
Yes.
talk or whatever. It might be worthwhile to look for people through there too.
Love it. Perfect. This is one of my to-dos for tomorrow to follow up with HR on this, so I love it. You're helping me, guys. But yeah, as far as staffing updates, that's really it for now. If no one has any other questions on that, we can go to our unfinished business, number 6. So finalize our quarterly meeting schedule. One, I have to apologize that I totally dropped the ball for stuff in January, and thank you, Matt, for being like super on it. Like I threw out a date. I'm like, oh yeah, I did say that date, didn't I? So sorry about that one. Thank you guys all for joining this evening. Looking at the little survey that I sent out, we only had a few replies, but what I got out of it was people, the preference majority was sticking to the kind of January, April, July, October schedule like we already have. And then I had like a couple votes for the like Mondays. Some were like any day but Monday. So those were a little bit all over. So what I was going to propose for our next meetings was doing kind of similar to what we have. And actually, I think this is funny, make it a little easier. So April, July, October would be our next 3. So a little shorter between for this one. And then sticking to our second week of the month, looking at Monday, April 11th, Monday, July 11th. And then because the week of October happens to be a holiday on the 10th, it would be October 11th, which is a Tuesday. So those next 3 months, they'd all be on the 11th. If everyone thinks that works or is good, we can proceed with that. If not, we can talk further on how we want to go for the rest of the year as far as quarterly meetings go.
That works for me.
Yep, great.
Cool. All right. So I will put that out as well once I do minutes, but so plan on April 11th, July 11th, and October 11th. So not always on a Monday, but always on the 11th.
It's a really good way to remember it. It's hold
That's kind of what I thought when I saw it worked out that way. I'm like, all right, I think we can do this. Myself included. All right. And then, all right, next and last thing for now is the board priority special project ideas. Caroline, are you wanting to step back in here?
I'm sorry. Julie brought me my dinner. All right. So I'm sitting here shoveling it down. So yes, so one of the things that I've always preached to those who know me, have known me for at least 6 years, that I really want the board to have some autonomy and have projects that what's important to the board. And so we wanted to just kind of talk to you guys about what kind of projects did you want to see the board take up in this next year or two. And Danny, I had suggested something, but I can't remember what it was now. She wrote it down.
All right, from my notes.
Yep.
Special project ideas. Volunteer program moving forward. Creation of complementary positions that will help us provide a better customer experience. And can the board assist with researching best practice / job descriptions and recommendations?
And that's for volunteer positions. So thank you, Danny. I'm sorry. I just completely had it was the tortellini my partner just gave me. So anyways, one of the things right now, our volunteers, mostly, we have some that do a few other things, but mostly they're dog walking, cat cuddling, that kind of thing. And I feel like there's a huge amount of talent in our volunteer corps that's not being utilized that could really help us in so many different aspects in providing, just help the customer experience with MAC improve, whether it's community outreach, turning phone calls, providing them information, following up with adopters, just all kinds of things that volunteers can partner with us and help us with. But I'm not sure what the best practices are or what the job descriptions are. So I thought that might be, an interesting project. And it kind of, not exactly, but Deanna had, that idea that she had is different, but it aligns with that, right? And how can we utilize all of our resources so that we provide the very best care and customer experience that we can for the residents of Minneapolis and the animals that we serve. So that was my idea. Deanna?
Dina.
I answer to all, but it is Dina. I love that. And as a volunteer and somebody who's out in the community all the time and has been with AHS and currently, with rescue, it's the one area of MAC that my husband, who also volunteers, we talk about all the time, that I know that we could offer more, but our discussion behind the scenes always is kind of what you're talking about a little bit, which is best practices tied into, not crossing boundaries with city policies and laws. And, so wanting to expand upon that complete adoption experience and being a resource for those adopters when they run into trouble in the first 2 weeks, or being able to offer some really free training on the weekends in our dog runs. Like if you've ever wanted to own a pit bull and you just love them, but you see them and they're cray cray, like how do I deal with a cray cray pitty who's 1 year old and just got neutered yesterday, right? It's not that hard if you want to learn about it. And there's a bunch of us up there who would, we would spend our entire day teaching you. And I look at our runs and I think, we could take advantage of that. We could do little sessions on the weekends. And so I'm just throwing it out there that I'm all on board for that. I think that you're right. The talent, there's a lot of volunteers that are like my husband and Lyle and Dan, and they just want to come in and walk. And I love them because they take every single dog that none of us can handle and they just walk them to death. But then there's others in there who, we've got the time, we've got the knowledge, and we would like every I think the thing that breaks my heart the most is the number of residents who I think would like to be better dog owners, even if it's just knowledge of how to feed or care. And it's just too expensive to do it. If you get a young pitty out of Mac and you want to go train that dog, it is costs you a fortune. It's a fortune. And it, for people who are on a budget, it's unreachable. And then you wonder why we get these guys back, out in the field. And so if we could offer, whether it's, you coming together with best practices that say, these are the types of training videos we want to send a link to, that once you adopt with us, the city has signed off on it. It's great. These are some tips on, each of these behaviors that, your data and statistics are telling you are issues out in the community with the animals, and us being able to be that resource without charging our residents a fortune. And I think that if we could, that's why I was so excited to see our volunteer coordinator as well, how, just expansive her depth of knowledge is that I do think there's a lot to build on. And I would love to be a part of that, because I think we could do great things at MAC.
Yeah.
I'm done.
And I agree with you, Dina, about especially the training. I think is really that's a great idea. Just because I've gone to training sessions like through animal control. Every in there's I think it was in um, Pennsylvania, one of the SPCA's there. They have a trainer that comes out every Saturday or whatever. People pay $5 or something. It's very small, and then they can bring their animal and they train for an hour. And so that's like the city paying, you know, or potentially subsidizing for the trainer, but maybe not. Just like an hour of trainer's time is what, probably $90 or something, 115, whatever. But it's something that would be uh, probably pretty helpful, especially when people have problems with their animals and they don't, if they can catch them before they become that issue, like Dina said, that's a good way to try and keep them happy out of the shelter.
Can I add something? Sorry.
Yeah.
This is my random idea I've had for a while that I just have to share now, and maybe someone can help me do something with it. All ties into the training thing is, there's the canine good citizen. I think it would be fabulous to have a canine good resident for our animals in our city, but also tie that into helping landlords accept more animals into their rentals. When they hey, they've gone through our good resident. They might not be a good citizen, per whatever that is, but they're a good resident, and here's why. Or this is what we know they've learned or worked on or done. And then not only is it just better for their home life, but also in general, teaching them to be a better neighbor and to be a better, little canine resident. Go ahead, Dina.
Well, I just want to spin off. I think, guys, now's the time, because we have come so far. We have this incredible, thank you, Danny, this incredible relationship with our volunteers now. I really do feel like they're partners. I think there's a trust there between, I think there's a mutual trust there between my Minneapolis Animal Control and our volunteers and our staff and just the whole thing. And that, I just think now's the time. This was the whole point of the ASN program, was to pivot and create this resource center, Dina, for our residents, and to keep pets in their homes, and to, quite frankly, keep them out of the shelter and keep them alive, right? That every life, I don't want to say that because that's going to belittle something, but anyways, but animals are important. And I think now's the time, and this board played such an important role in helping us to the point where we're at now. And I think it's an opportunity for you guys to take it to that next level with us. Dina, you had your hand up?
I just wanted to say, Danny, you nailed something that is really, it's out there in the community a lot, about landlords being afraid to accept pitties. And it's such a hindrance, because obviously that tends to be our predominant breed. So many people want to own them, and know that they can't. And if there would be a program we could look into in other cities that we could build upon, where we, like you said, can get these landlords a good bully breed, whatever, that we could get past that, and maybe there's insurance laws that we have to look into, all of that. But that would be fabulous if we could get landlords involved in this too. I'm done.
And Bad Rap has a really good program that they do right now with they've done a lot of work with landlords. And I think part of it is incentivizing the landlords to make it like a good position. Like honestly, if people knew most pit bulls, like mine's just lay on the couch all the time. They're like completely benign. So it's like the best kind of resident, the one that you don't know is there. But I think it's just all about having landlords that are open to that and helping them realize that if you have, like when I rented out my house in Minneapolis, I put it like that was the thing I put on my Craigslist ad is pit bull friendly, reactive dog friendly, place, because I really wanted somebody like that. Because honestly, one, it's good because I love pit bulls and I love reactive dogs and I want to help out people who can't find a place. But two, if people can't find a place, those are really dedicated renters that do not want to lose where they're at. Like that, I mean, it's kind of traps you. So if they can make it, I mean, it does. Like honestly, I had a German Shepherd, I had pit bulls, and you don't have a lot of options. And so like you want to be good. Like I was really good for my landlords because I wanted to be able to stay and keep my dogs there. So I don't know. I think that that's a great idea about trying to figure out maybe how the city can incentivize landlords to be good, because I don't think it's so much about the individual dogs, because it's really, I mean, it could be about the individual dogs later, but like right now it's just that they don't even have policies that will accept them. And they're, so that's really where you have to kind of
That's a
begin.
huge global issue that, I mean, you're talking,
It is.
looking globally. And I think, there's the Renters First programs that we have in the city and stuff. And maybe we could partner with housing to help develop some of these policies.
Yeah. What about Mac
rentals.
policy? What about Minneapolis housing? Do you
Well,
guys
that's what
let,
I'm saying.
I mean, like, are pit bulls allowed there?
Oh,
Minneapolis
public housing?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Probably
I
not.
don't know.
think so.
I mean, that's something that
Honestly.
we should look into, because
Yeah,
that would
no,
be
we
something that Matt
can.
could actually potentially change,
We should, we'll write that down, talk to Kelly.
Yeah, because I don't know about
She's
public
the
housing.
director.
I mean, I'm not
Housing.
sure if they, how many,
I don't even know if they
pets.
allow pets. I think they do,
Exactly.
but I
But
don't know if there's
if they
restrictions. They do.
if there's restrictions,
I
then
think
we
there's a
should
20-pound restriction, to be honest, but I'm
You
not
Oh,
could be
100%.
right.
and then you should talk to them about that too, because 20 pound, it really does not matter how much the dog weighs. Like, I mean, honestly, it really doesn't. Like, most of the time, bigger dogs are lazier in my experience. So it's like, I would rather have a 150-pound Mastiff that's quiet than like a Chihuahua that barks all the time. Not Chihuahua, let's say like a Beagle. Chihuahuas get picked
There
on
you
a
go.
lot. They're good dogs too, but like a Beagle that
Yeah.
barks all the time or yodels all the time, like there are different things, and it's just, people think that the breed of the dog is so important, but it's really the individual dog. And you can do, like, people do meets for dogs, like land
Little
do.
interviews. Yep.
Yep. And so like that's like we did that with our, I think that's a way to do it.
Savannah.
Yes, I just Googled the restriction for housing and pets. So it's one cat or one dog weighing not more than 25 pounds, or
Yeah.
2 caged birds, or an aquarium of 30 gallons or less, or 2 caged gerbils or hamsters.
All right.
Dang.
Well, we know what we need to work on. 20 pounds or less is
Is that
unacceptable.
the Minneapolis
That's
Housing
Minneapolis
Authority?
housing, public
They're
housing.
not.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily controlled by Minneapolis. I did learn that
True.
recently. So that's a bigger picture, but then
But
there's regular
housing
landlords too.
with that works with like the rental, with all the landlords and the rental properties and rental
Yeah.
units and licenses. That is in our division or department.
Our
I can
department.
never remember which. Thank you. I can never remember which, if I'm a department or division. I don't know.
But I do think it's an initiative we should take on. I think
Right.
that's.
But I do
I'll
think we could
bring that
also work
up.
with our housing in general, with our, the landlords and the, those things. And I mean, I do know, I think public housing has started becoming better about requiring their tenants to make sure that they're like rabies vaccinated and licensed. So that as a thing of going, yes, you've done these things or whatever. Whereas like that's not even standard across all of our landlords and rentals, type of thing. And that's like, I feel like that's another place where we could partner,
Yep. So
with
to
them.
offer low cost
Like,
things so
hey,
that
yeah,
people,
like,
it's not a
look,
barrier. Yep.
we can help them get vaccinated and licensed, and look, they've done these things, and that's one step in the direction of a, obviously someone who's trying to do the responsible thing with their pets. Yes, Dina.
Just to build on that, my other idea with that has always been like a color coding chart for our pitties and our bully breeds. And
For all
really could
dogs.
be for animals, where you just basically it's that level of experience of owner. So like you could almost say like, and maybe it's too hard, because I know one of the things I find when I train is a lot of my animals will, especially my bigger dogs, will change at 24 months a little bit in personality. So we could run into trouble guaranteeing a personality profile, but even making it easier both for people to find a dog that fits, or maybe get a requirement for that particular building to say we would take all green level dogs out of MAC. Like, let's say you're going to be in public housing and your family wants to own a dog. Well, if you go on MAC's website, any green tagged animal has been approved for public housing or something like that, just to simplify it. But I know we can talk about this more if we venture into it with our little mini breakout groups for brainstorming. But I think this could be a massively awesome thing. So thank you.
Yeah, I can think of at least one other organization that would greatly love to see something like this initiative through the city. But I also think, though, that we do need to focus on the internal pieces and workings of MAC too, and then expand. I think we need to get that foundation built and expand.
And we have so many awesome ideas. I just want to do them all.
I know. I'm just thinking. My thoughts are I keep falling down with my volunteers because I feel like you guys are our backbone, and some of these ideas the volunteers could really help us develop once we get that foundation built. There, I'm not sure whose hand is up.
Savannah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. The only other I just want to pitch my idea that I've been thinking about. So I'm going to tell a story. Over the summer, my husband and I took a road trip with our dogs to Colorado. We stopped at many cities, dog parks. And one thing that I found that was really impactful, since it feels like we're putting the care back in animal care and control, was that there was well water. So there was pump wells available for water for the dogs at the park, and also like very limited but like cheaply made agility equipment. And it just made the experience at the dog park a lot better. And so if people have a place to go to get those like high energy dogs on agility equipment, running around, having water, so we're not bringing like garbage and plastic bottles to the dog park, I think that could help pet owners a lot as well.
The agility equipment's an awesome idea. I mean, really, that gives people something to be able to try and work with their dog on. Even if it's just like right outside the park. I don't know. Well, no, it has to be.
Yeah, you don't want it outside. That's off leash in a non-fenced area.
The only
we
thing
also
is
talk to park board. We don't oversee the dog parks.
Yeah.
No, we don't. But what we could approach them and see what their appetite for that is. I mean, I think I personally could approach them and see if they would be interested. I don't know why they don't have them.
Because it could be something that like our volunteers or groups could come in and help make those types of the agility equipment.
Community building.
Yes, and then it can be like, the community in MAC brought to you by type of thing.
Yeah. And it's
let the community participate.
Yeah, like homemade stuff, like things you make in your backyard, and I think that would be really cool to see.
And you might be able to get like Home Depot or places like that to donate the lumber. They have a lot of lumber that they call out because it's getting old and starting to work.
A lot of it's PVC too and stuff.
Yeah, it would be fine for building a bridge or whatever they use on those. Obviously, you can see I've done agility so much with my dogs. But anyways, some of the stuff they use, the teeter-totters and stuff, that's out of wood. So it could be done. That's a good idea.
Dina?
I love that, Savannah, because that's something I've been thinking about and Carolyn, you'll be able to make the magic happen. I just know it, which is how do we partner with the Minneapolis Park Board? Because, one of the things I think all of us in animal care firmly believe is that, a free-for-all dog park is not our ideal setting for most of our animals. And I know Golden Valley started something with their ice rinks where in the summer, since the boards are already up, they basically allow you to come in. The rule is one at a time. Some of them they've divided up and halved it, but it's, on your honor system, but you go up there and you can just run your dog. And, for those dogs that end up in our shelter because they just don't have enough hours in the day to run that dog hard, a good 20-minute nonstop tongue hanging out, that's a dog who's not going to run out of their backyard tomorrow, right? He's going to have a good 24 hours to recoup that energy. And but there's just not enough places. When I think people go to dog parks, I think they're thinking, I need to get the energy out. We need more places, and there's a lot of spots in the city. I can tell you, I scout them all the time when I'm driving, that we could put up these little mini places where people could have a protected area and just let those dogs run in the evening, in the morning, whenever. The rule of thumb, maybe you can't have it for more than 30 minutes. It would require partnering, I'm sure, with space with park board, but I think that would be a game changer for some of those young dogs that we see end up coming in either in the field or on a stray.
Is this
that is
park board
amazing.
property that you're seeing, or?
I'm going to guess any land that I see is most likely going to be park board. Like over here in Bryn Mawr, when the tornadoes came through, what was that, 10 years ago or whatever, through Theodore Wirth, there's this amazing spot that used to be tennis courts that has sat vacant now for that entire time. The trees are gone, everything. And every time I'm walking, I'm like, my gosh, the things I could do with that for somebody who owned. And I go up in North Minneapolis, not as much anymore because I just have to watch myself. But there's a couple spots in North Minneapolis to keep it, in the communities that would serve even, some of the greater need for that.
And they need it too. I don't. Yeah.
They need it, they
Anybody
need it,
with
and
an
there's
apartment,
we can't
yeah,
give it to them.
that's a really awesome idea, Dina. I think that's like that could be a total. Like I literally wanted to cry when you were talking about it. Because I was like thinking about like when I was in my apartment, I had my German Shepherd who was dog reactive, and like she didn't walk well on the leash, so we couldn't like, and I didn't have a place where I could really work to train her in a safe way, like so that would be like awesome. And I would run her up and down in the hallway of the apartment, which is, you should not do that. Don't do that. It's terrible. Well, because if somebody pops open and they have their little dog there, it could have been horrible, but it was fine. She was a great dog. But like that could have been like, so it would have helped so much. So I think that's an awesome idea. Good work.
Love it. Also on this, we're just like brainstorming. This would be where we could also potentially hold training classes for people
Yeah.
that we support is at the parks or park boards or these open areas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
They're
the
good.
MAC
It's like
obviously doesn't have the greatest space, unfortunately. I wish we did. What?
Are you writing this down?
Oh, yes.
All right. What else? Does anybody else have anything else?
Yeah.
I think we could
Yeah.
go on for days, to be honest. What you got?
So I think it might have been Danny, did you add it to an addendum for this? I don't know if you
I
actually
think
added
we have
it
to
or
add
not.
it now. So if we
Oh,
if we want to pause and or go, we've got a good chunk of stuff to muddle our brains on for ideas, then yes, we can do an addendum.
okay. Well, so it's, I mean, it's kind of basically in the same vein. Like I've been talking with a couple of the board members and talking about Mac and trying to like figure out what kind of, right, like I feel like the board, we have been very active in the past and we're not as active now, and we're trying to figure out, well, how can we kind of get back in there and be useful. And then the one of the things, there's a couple of things that have come to like my attention. Like number one, and I've experienced this myself, and I not recently because I haven't volunteered at Mac recently, but as a volunteer at Mac, it is a hard experience sometimes, just because it's like when I'm there and I'm the only dog walker there, I feel so incredibly guilty if I cannot get every single dog out. But then you can't be there for 4 hours, 5 hours every time you're there. You can't always take every dog out. And so that becomes like a negative volunteer experience for someone. And then they would rather just not go in. They don't think about it, but they would just not go into the shelter versus coming in and being disappointing all these dogs, or all the cats that could get cuddled. And I do know, like, it looks like about like 52%, it looks like, of volunteer shifts are being filled right now. That's what I have. So I mean, it depends on what type, dog, walker, cat cuddler, etc. But it sounds like it's between 50 and 60%. And I think that we're counting filled as one volunteer, which I don't really think is probably, I mean, I don't think it's where it should be. I think Minneapolis has a great animal thing, and I'm super excited about this volunteer coordinator that you're going to have. And so I was thinking maybe the board could help with the volunteer coordinator or the new position or whatever, to try and work on the things that would make it a better experience for volunteers at MAC, because really it's so dumb, but because like I go and I'm like, I want to volunteer for the animals, but really I also want to have fun for myself, and so it's like it's got to be positive to make people come back. And I think right now it's not as positive as it could be because there is that time crunch, and there's other things too, but I think that not being the only one, or that's really devastating to volunteers. So
yeah, and I think we found the right person for that, and she will be actively participating at the board. So
awesome.
I think that's going to definitely be gonna happen situation. Okay. So
the other thing I've had so this is kind of not, I don't know how the board can like interact with this, or if we need to, or we just have to kind of figure out what's going on. But I've had reports of people waiting so long on hold to try and adopt an animal, like 2 hours on hold without getting answered, and like lots of people dropping. I do know like the
we know.
animal. Okay, yeah. So like that is horrific. I mean,
that's
so I don't.
311.
Yeah.
That's not MAC. We don't actually have anyone really answering phones at MAC, and that's one of the areas that in the future I want to see if we can find volunteers to help us with, so that we can have I don't know, everything we have goes through 311 right now. That's all over the city, and they're just overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, so it seems like there should be a way to have like, okay, if you're calling about XYZ, whatever, have them, call into 311 or whatever, or 311 could like route all of the, I don't know, all the adoption ones to you. I don't think 311, they shouldn't be waiting on hold.
Yeah, no.
for
So
that
yeah, the
long.
people call, it goes to
Yeah.
311, and they wait in that queue, unfortunately, until an agent can answer, and then the agent is putting the call through for us. So once it gets to us, typically it's taking us, depending on the day, less than a day to call back. But yes, at that point they've called, they've left their info, and we have to call them back because we aren't able to we don't get direct calls, period.
We don't get any direct calls. And so I find that extremely problematic, because aren't you doing like adoption appointments? Mm-hmm. So there's really no great way for people to make appointments. I guess they could walk in.
Well, we're looking at self-scheduling programs right now. We're actually looking at ways around this.
Awesome.
But right now it's handled through, I hate to say it, but through a smart sheet. I think you can sign up for vaccine clinics.
Just vaccine clinics. So our vaccine clinics right now is a smart sheet form that they can put the request in. Again, that is unfortunately because we're staring at Chameleon, which is where all of our calls come in every day. And then we have our boxes, and the admin box is what fills up with adoption and return to owner requests and things like that. Those often get on the sideline, unfortunately, like the vaccine requests. Like I can tell you, I've got probably a good 30 people that we haven't even had a chance to call yet that have requested a vaccine appointment. And they tend to actually get through faster when they call 311 and wait and hold and get the call in, because I'm looking at Chameleon more than I'm looking at a smart sheet. But I know, they're working on different bookings things that we can utilize that the city is already utilizing, where they can put in their requests in a different
you can
format.
go online and file a request for 311 that will come automatically to us online. You don't have to sit in that 2-hour queue. I don't know if everybody knows that or not.
Probably not.
But, yeah.
I don't know that it comes automatically to us.
Well, you can file a complaint through 311.
You can put an email, you can do a text, but it pretty much 311 vets everything, and then it gets eventually emailed or sent over to us in some fashion.
Danny knows everything. So
okay, I'm super glad that you guys are aware of that.
We are. We haven't figured it out. How
adoption, getting them out when less days, that's healthier for everybody. It's safer for everybody. So
it's amazing that we've done as well as we have. We have basically, I have what I have. We have Nancy Ingberg now at the front counter, Anne, who's trying to cover as much. And trust me, I don't even, if I ask that woman to do one more thing, she may actually explode. But she's, she does all kinds of stuff, and she doesn't she's not a front counter person anymore. So she's writing up criminal complaints and sending them in and different things for us. So there's there's a lot that goes on, and so I don't really have the staff to answer phones, and that's what 311 is for, But unfortunately, with COVID and everybody being home, and their call volume is just crazy through the roof, and they've hired people. It's not that they're not hiring; they're constantly hiring. It's insanity for them. I think I'm not trying to be too defensive, but I am at the same time. Drives me crazy because we're dealing with the anger from having to sit on the phone.
Yeah, once we call them, whew.
I get angry about it.
I think Savannah was next.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry, guys. I didn't.
No. So my comment, I actually tried to bring a dog that was found at the MAC this weekend. And then I was on hold for about 45 minutes, and then I ended up finding their home, and so it all worked out, happy ending. But
that was the plan.
It was, yeah.
Well, weekend 2 and 1 doesn't work weekends.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense.
So
yeah. Like, the one thing was that my friend actually found it, and then he brought it to me because he was like, you know what to do with dogs. He went to MAC, and the website says they're open on weekends. So even if we can like update the website,
no, Google says it. I think Google still says it.
You can ask Google as the owner of the establishment. You can change the hours that are on there.
All right, because Google is causing a lot of confusion for us.
Yeah.
All right.
And if 311 doesn't work on the weekends, how in the heck is she able to wait 45 minutes to not find that out? I think that
couldn't tell you. Like that, I have no idea why it doesn't automatically go to like a voicemail
just
or
a message
something like that.
No, not even just like we are not working, call back on Monday.
Right.
But having people wait.
I think you can leave because did you ever? If you hung up, did you ever even get a voicemail option? Okay, because I've had some folks tell me, I don't know how long they've had to wait. Yeah, I've had some folks like tell me they can actually leave a voicemail, and that's how eventually we get notified of something. Is they'll go, oh yeah, on our voicemails we've got this, but it could have been 3 days ago. By the time they're getting it to us from a weekend voicemail or whatever.
And so
I don't even know how you can call.
Like people with dog bites and things, I guess they still probably are waiting on 311 for time.
Potentially, we tell them to call 911 or non-emergency police. Yep, on the weekends is the only way we're getting calls.
Okay.
If it's a dog bite, we'd consider that a priority one call to get to. Dina, did you have something else?
Oh, I just thought, because yes, everything you guys said is correct about that. I was thinking an easy solution, and I know confidentiality, you brought up a bunch, Danny, as far as certain things have to stay within the parameters of the systems, but, utilizing us volunteers who, have our phones available all the time to be able to shoot that email out. So like you're getting, like you said, I've got 30 people who are needing a vaccination appointment or something. If you, with this new coordinator coming on board, or even in the interim saying, who'd like to be one of those people I reach out to, right? And then that person can at least make that first contact, like, oh, I see you're interested in peach, and anything that like everyone's aware. I know our first job probably as a city impound is not adoptions, right? That's just the luxury that we've been given because we're in Minneapolis and we're doing things differently and we have a new culture in society. But I'm sure when it was originally set up, that wasn't the thought of a city impound. And so to be able to both manage the needs of the city and what our first practices are, but what also at the end of the day is the feel good story, which is that second chance, happy ending, which is why our community is now really starting to support us. If you could tap into those volunteers, I know there's a bunch of us who would be happy to reach out and at least get those first conversations started so you guys don't feel so backlogged. But
yeah. And I mean, there's absolutely no way that Danny, as the shelter director, should be scheduling people for vaccine appointments. I mean, I know you're understaffed. I understand that, but if you got to have the shelter director doing that, you need volunteers. You need something. Something's got to give there. You can't. You got other things you got to do.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah. But thank you guys for being open. That's all I had.
Thank you, Adam. Anybody else? Anything moving backwards back to our projects and or what the board's priorities are for this term, or anything, any additional addendums or anything? Yes, Savannah.
Just to offer my help. So I do user experience research. So I will probably be pretty helpful with like anytime we need to do some research on a topic, or lots of experience like interviewing people and digging in and getting more information from them. So very happy.
Love it.
That could be really cool for the volunteer program too. Like it's a different user experience than an adopter, but they're probably the ones like we care about the most because they're recurrent and adopters just come once or twice, you know. I mean, it's still important for the adopters to have a great experience, but that's cool, Savannah.
Yeah, that's what I thought of when you said the volunteer experience. Like, let's find interview past volunteers, future volunteers, like what would make the experience better for you, looking at other rescues and adoptions. Like, I volunteer for 2 rescues and I have frustrations with both of them. And so how can we erase those and create a joyful experience? Because that's what people want.
That's fabulous. I love it. The other thought that came to my mind was too is working with our rescues as a group. You know, like we've been trying to do yearly meetings, which of course COVID has kind of derailed, but like we've done trying to do surveys and different things. Like, how do we engage them more and get them to pull from us over somewhere else, over Texas or whatever? You know, and I feel like we've hit a bunch of brick walls a little bit, you know, as far as why or whatever, and we may never be able to fix that. But I do think, you know, that would be another area that you might be really helpful for us in, is kind of being someone that is not like, I mean, you're a volunteer for us in a way because you're on our board, but you're kind of also a non-biased party in a way that can kind of talk to them and go, all right, because they were hesitant to like talk to our other even non-animal control staff, but like downtown staff about stuff. Like, we're like, no, we just want you to bear it all out and say it. Like, what is it? What can we do? And I think that's gotten better, but it's still something we struggle with.
You know, we are so transparent with our rescue groups now, and I've actually heard that actually hurts us, because now they know so much about the animals that they don't want to deal with the problems, and that's kind of sad. It's really sad because you can't win. So,
well, those are the really good skill of like getting people to tell me all their secrets. And so hopefully that can come in handy. So happy to help any way I can.
Savannah, you should talk with the director of every single rescue that's on Mac's board or on Mac's list that has not pulled recently. I've tried talking with directors of big rescues, big rescues to see why, you know, what's happening, why isn't it happening? But like, if we can just let them know, like, hey, if you have things that you want, what do you want from us? We can give it to you in this animal. Like, you don't have to do anything. Like, we will make it easy. I mean, and you guys are already making a lot of them, you know, or all of them free.
We haven't charged, and I can't tell you how long.
And some of them have like $200 incentives and stuff like that. You guys are doing like, when I get those emails, I'm like, oh my God, I love you so much. Like, they're so good. I mean, they really are what people need. Like, they give people the information that they need to make it a successful placement for, you know, for an animal. And it's so, you guys are doing such good jobs on that. But yeah, I just wish I think that there should be, and there probably is, a way for us to just like, I know I don't want to come at like almost like kowtow. Like, how can we help you? You know, like, it's not I know with Mac,
I think it's
help us, help you, help us.
But I think some of it is the fact that animals are not as at risk as they used to be at MAC.
Yeah.
They're not as there's other shelters where they're much higher risk, and they're going to go try to help the ones that are at the highest risk.
Yeah.
And sorry, and it almost is like, I swear to you, this is how it feels like. We have to threaten to kill a dog sometimes before we can get him out of there. And it shouldn't, that's stressful. I mean, it just shouldn't be that way.
Well, and it's bad for the dog because they're waiting and getting stressed out and becoming less and less easy to foster.
That's the other part. Like, we're trying to put it out there before we're at that point, but then they wait and wait and wait. And now we're at really getting to a bad point, and then it gets worse. And it's like, we told you a month ago.
And then suddenly everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon in social media and wants to save this dog who's completely lost their mind in our facility and is starting to attack staff and volunteers. And it was a perfectly nice dog that's just, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy town.
I think Matt had something to throw in here?
We're ignoring Matt. I'm just kidding, Matt.
No, I just wanted to weigh in when we're talking about the priorities. I think right now, to me, the top priority is for sure the volunteer program and helping the new coordinator in any way we can as far as that goes. And then the second thing is, I know that we talked about the rescues and our partners out there. And I know that still the bulk of them come from just a small population of who we have and just trying to reach out. So if I'm talking about this term, I think that those would be the two top priorities that I would see that way as well. So just wanted to weigh in on that part.
Well, for that, can Minneapolis like buy somebody dinner? Like, what can you do? I mean, I don't know. You can't. Okay.
Actually, we can actually, if it's open to the general public, we can buy you dinner.
Oh, okay.
But I can't buy my staff dinner.
Okay. All right.
So,
All right, I saw Dina and then I saw Savannah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say that as far as you really don't need to wonder what's going on with your rescue partners. I can tell you, as somebody who's very involved, and if Megan was here, I'm sure she would have, the exact same words, which are the majority of the rescues, their money comes from adorably cute, mid-size, American popular breed. I mean, that's just that there's a reason that a lot of them pull them, okay? And it's an easy adoption and it's easy money in the pockets and they don't think about it ever again. And we have such a small number of bully breed rescues with so few foster homes that we really struggle. Even, as large as Rough Start is right now, we struggle with anything that is a bully breed. And I've got amazing homes out there. And so Carolyn is right. When you say that you kind of shot yourself in the foot by being such an advocate for these animals, because it's the word on the street in rescue is you're right. Mac that's why everybody loves Mac, because Mac's not going to youth these animals like St. Paul is and Pups is for space. And so it is down to the wire. It's that last minute, like, oh my gosh, they might actually youth this animal. And they're right. By then we've already been dealing with so many behaviors that have just been amplified. But it's a hard position to be in. What we're doing as a group is the right thing to do. And it should be commended every single second of the day. But it's hurting us because we're not going to be the first place they go. And Pups in St. Paul have been euthanizing nonstop for the last few months. They're just so full. And in rescue, there aren't enough foster homes. So that's one thing that maybe if we could look at building on that foster program that we dipped our toes into there when COVID started. I look at it as a money thing. And you, Carolyn and Danny, only you guys can speak numbers to this, but to me, it seems like it would benefit us to have, say, even 10 foster homes out there for kittens during kitten season. And we don't charge very much, but to me, most of the time, minus some, antibiotics here and there that, aren't relatively very expensive, it would seem that we're actually going to put money in the coffers during certain times of the year by having our own fosters and not dealing with rescue, not having those mama cats sit there for 5+ weeks, when really, if somebody didn't have to deal with the nonsense that some of us rescues give to people, like Savannah said, I'm irritated with both my rescues I'm involved with. And all of us who are in rescue, we put up with it because this is what we believe passionately in. But I'll tell you what, Danny, 100 times a day over, I would rather come pick up mama and kittens from you than deal with the nonsense that goes on in rescue. So just a little food for thought for you guys, that really is what's going on behind the scenes. There's not enough adorables and there's not enough foster homes. We're doing the right thing, but it's hurting us because other shelters are euthanizing every day.
Well, it's pretty amazing how many foster homes. I'm just going to jump in, Savannah. I apologize, but it's amazing how many foster homes came out and said, "We're here if you need us." They're here in Minneapolis. The Minneapolis residents want to partner with us. They really do. I mean, Minneapolis has its problems, but being animal lovers is not one of their. I mean, they love animals in Minneapolis, and I know that they're out there. And when we did our, I hate to use the word State of the Union, but State of the Union address that I did to my staff, one of our goals for 2022 is to try to have at least 50% of our animals in foster homes by the end of the year. So that's one of my priorities, and I think you're right. It's going to be key. It's a key element for moving forward in the
Yes.
sheltering world that we're in, and the city cannot afford to just keep throwing money at and let's face it, we do make really good money, and they can't afford to just keep throwing money at positions. We have got to partner with the community to make this happen and to really make this the organization that it should be. And I think the animals deserve it in Minneapolis, and I think the citizens, the residents, deserve it in Minneapolis. Savannah, you're waiting so patiently with me. Thank you for letting me interrupt you, Adam. And
no worries. I was just gonna say that it sounds like the problem is not the rescues. The problem is we should be the ultimate foster people. And so I know of a person that fostered for a very high-end, most famous rescue in all of Minnesota, and she started fostering for Mac instead because it was a better experience. So how do we pull fosters from other groups that want to and create that really good experience?
Yeah, and we want to make that happen. And I'm really hoping that this volunteer coordinator position, this person that we hired, is going to really help with that, especially since she's not going to be somebody that I can just go, hey, you already know, you've been an animal control officer, let me put a uniform on you, we're short today. So Danny unfortunately was one of those people, and anybody that's volunteered at MAC has seen her back there not doing surgeries, but helping with surgeries, doing exam. I mean, she just everything. And so I'm hoping this new coordinator will be able to completely focus on this and not be distracted by all these other things that, I can't pull her into because she hasn't experienced it. So that's my hope. Who's next?
I think Adam's next, but I was going to say, Dina, with what you said, I do agree. Foster is huge. And like we've already said, that's a big priority. So any help the board can or will give us with that will be amazing, because that is not something I personally have a lot of experience in, other than with what I've read and then kind of just done at MAC. In regards to running or upkeeping one. And I know our new person coming in has a little bit with working with the rescue before, but not as much. But the other piece with the rescue piece is I feel that what we need to, or what we're trying to do, and I've talked to this with my staff, is we have to be more self-reliant. Our rescues are inundated and or have other priorities or whatever. And we have been really trying to think out of the box on things we can do, and I still struggle with that. Caroline had she was right moment with Evie this past week, and we found a fantastic home for her. Even though literally a week ago I felt a deadline for euthanasia was 100% appropriate because of what we were seeing and dealing with in the shelter. But a few days in the office and doing a Hail Mary ended up being, I think, fantastic. As far as I know, she's been doing great. I talked to as she said,
found the unicorn.
She did. She found the unicorn homes. I said, Carolyn, unicorns aren't there everywhere. And then the unicorn showed up to the shelter. So it happens. And I'm trying to get my staff to think of, okay, what can we do? And get it to our rescues that we are only asking in those cases, really, where it is something we can't deal with right now for whatever. And it could be, sometimes less minor or more severe, depending on if we've got, 100 foster homes full of kittens, we might ask them for taking a mama and kittens because we don't have another one, or it might be those really, really tough medical or behavioral that we're at a point where we can't do anything else for them or whatever. So just so you guys kind of know, that's something also percolating there. Adam, go ahead.
Percolating on top of that, this is basically just related. Do you guys do foster to adopt?
That's what the Found a Foster is.
That's kind of what Found a Foster is.
I mean, it's not.
Not yet. Not yet. We're getting there.
Okay.
We've done a few.
really what foster homes are just regular people that could also just be adopters. Adopters could just be foster homes, you know? So like
Yes.
I know that there can be like some pretty great programs, especially like so some of the dogs that you have that are going out to, like you're talking about becoming more self-reliant. Like some of the dogs, if you had like a picture of them, you know, in the lobby with, these are like my medical needs, I'm looking for someone to help keep, you know, keep me during this time. And you know, if you want to, or you know, if you want to see if we're a good match, you know, you can take me home and either foster me and, you know, help me find a home, or, you know, keep me, you know, like stuff like that, where people can feel like they can choose their animal. That's a really, when I'm looking to adopt an animal, I always try to foster to adopt, just because I want it, my other animals are so important to me. I want to make sure it's a perfect fit. So I don't know if you can, make that, even if you just focus foster to adopt for, like, you don't want, no, you don't have to do it for the kittens, because everybody can adopt a kitten. But if you've got, you know, animals that have like these health issues or behavior issues, it's not like it's not like the fosters are all like amazing at behavior issues. I mean, we all hope that they are, but you know, really, there's a lot of people that have, you know, issues, or they learn as they go. And I think that, you know, adopters can do that too, if they're, you know, if they're willing to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, we definitely have done some like foster to adopt situations. We've had a few dogs, and we've had a few more dogs than cats that we've offered, like folks, if they've been on the fence. Usually if I'm doing it, I'll go in and go, all right, if you're really not sure, let's do this a week or two, see, you know, to start with, and see how it goes. And if it's
Yep.
horrible, bring it back. And then the
I've
worst thing that
seen
happens
Danny.
is,
She's like, I know you're the right owner, and you're taking this dog home.
yeah, I
So,
make sign the
so
paper, dang it.
yeah. So
When you
Dina,
know, you
this
know.
goes back to what the volunteers can do. Part of the pushback, I think, from staff with really launching this is that there's not enough. We don't have the support that we can give to these fosters that we feel like they so desperately deserve. Um, and that's something I think that's a volunteer thing that could happen, right? And so right now, you know, that hasn't happened. But one of the things, and I'll tell you what happened with Evie. Danny, is it okay? With Evie,
Sure, I don't know
so
what you're
my
gonna say.
staff and I've seen it with the volunteers too, with these guys, is they start to see them deteriorate. These animals are starting to deteriorate. And these are people who are laying their soul down every day for these animals. I mean, they really do put their heart and soul into them. And they're watching these animals start to deteriorate, and it really starts to weigh heavily on their hearts, right? Because they know what's coming. They know what it's like to have feces stuck to the ceiling because the animal has completely lost his mind. And anybody who's worked in the old shelters remembers those days. And they start to panic. And they next thing I know, I end up with a deadline on a dog because he's suffering, and we know he needs to get out of here, right? And rescue just won't help us. They're focusing on St. Paul dogs or whatever, right? And one of the things that staff are really learning, and we all are actually, is being able to say, today's not a good day to die, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure out what the next thing is that I need to do to help this dog be successful, even if he has to stay at MAC for a little longer. What does he need to be successful, and what do I need to get him out? And I think Evie was a good example of that. Right, Annie? Evie lived in the office for a couple of days. She needed to get out of her kennel. You know, she's a great dog. A little bit of a jerk with other dogs, but we found her somebody who got German Shepherds, and she doesn't live in the city. She lives on 5 acres. It's all fenced in, and she's got a jerk brother that she lives with. And when she realized he just wants to hump her leg, she just finally started ignoring him. Everything's good, right? So I mean, they're out there. We had to look somewhere else for that perfect home. And it's not always easy when the emotions are playing. I've even had volunteers going, why are we keeping this dog here? I mean, you know what I mean? You expect that from staff sometimes, but not from your volunteers. But I mean, they do. Dina, we have completely ignored you.
Oh,
Are you
you're
ready to have
good.
your hand up? Or is it just stuck?
Yeah, yeah. I have chicken pox, by the way. That's why you can't see my
Oh,
face tonight.
no.
Yeah,
Like
what?
I have chicken pox.
Oh, come on, let
No
us
lie.
see.
I'm 51 years old, and this is obviously the second time in my life because I actually had shingles too. So
Oh,
How is that
yeah,
possible?
that's what everybody's saying.
You can get
They're like,
chickenpox twice? My
yes,
wife's
you
a
get
nurse. She said yes. I did not know that.
My husband has shingles. He was up at the shelter dying by himself this weekend. And when the dogs jumped on him, he's a strong guy. He's like, I had tears in my eyes. He's like, I got on the ground and almost started crying. And of course, the pitties are like, what's up? We're going to have fun with this one. It was horrible. I felt so bad for him. But obviously, I'm in quarantine. So, so I lose my train of thought with this. But the one part with the Adams, so building on that, one of our biggest programs at Rough Start that's really popular is the Foster to Adopt. But I would want to tag that with what we've been talking about, which is building up that community support, that community that we're touching every corner of our city. And maybe what we're doing is we're putting programs in place for families that are considering adopting a dog, especially our young, everybody falls in love with our pitties because they're adorable. But any of our dogs, and I hate to keep bringing up the bully breeds, but where we actually have and we could save time by doing something where, once again, it's an online, video that you watch as a family, and maybe, a volunteer helps out in person at the adoption, but let them test run that dog. But also have a program in place that really lets them know this is the type of dog we should be looking at, and if we're not quite ready, these are the things we can learn to be ready for that dog. And then have that volunteer support system in place, a volunteer leader who's like, hey, you're having behavior issues, no problem, let's talk about this. And so I think that could be one of our ways out of this. But the other part that I would love to touch with base on, and I know, Danny, I brought this up with you a long time ago, I would really like to follow the lead of Mesa and Phoenix, Arizona, where they have had so much success with treadmills in their shelter for their dogs. I mean, they will, I don't know their numbers. I'm not a numbers girl. I just know that I flipped out when I read the success of it, but they just talk about how many lives have been saved because they could get some of their more intense dogs on that treadmill for 20 minutes. And Danny said, where would we put it? And every time I'm in the shelter, I think to myself, well, up in the front run, up in the small kennels. Thankfully we're not that full right now. And I know that things could change and then they're full. And what do you do? And then maybe you're not running that treadmill, but on the weekends, we're not open anymore. So we can use that lobby. We could put it in front of the window. And if it's successful, that could be just one more thing that you're showing the public on inexpensive, because I looked them up on Amazon, $350 to get your dog's mind calm. So you can live with that high energy first 3 years. What am I going to do with it? All breeds can enjoy that. But I would love to see us experiment with that and see if, how Carolyn, you said, this isn't your day to die. What's that next step? Well, maybe we have a treadmill and somebody says, look, does anybody have an extra volunteer hour this week to come up and do 2 dogs on the treadmill that are really struggling? And I guarantee you've already got the volunteers who'd run up there and help.
Do you think putting the treadmills inside kennels would be a bad thing? Like, would they be facing a wall? I guess.
Don't do the kennels, but you could do it in the runs, or you could do it in that place where you have that adoption room right in the front where people can watch. Like, I'm just saying, like, that would be that. I think that would be cool.
I will tell you, we'd have to sell it a little bit. I do have staff that's very hesitant because of dog fighting. That what is it going to look like when animal control is putting dogs on a treadmill?
My gosh,
we're seizing treadmills from dog fighters.
Well, hey, you already have treadmills
to train fighting dogs.
No, but I mean, yeah, you don't need. That was inappropriate. I'm sorry, but like,
I was gonna suggest a webcam, but definitely not anymore after that kind of.
What did I say? You gotta tell me.
I'll fill you in later, Caroline. Heather, let's move on to Heather. She's got her hand.
I actually get it. And I'm an old.
I do get it. I don't have a problem with it. That's just the issues I've.
Well, and the general public would just be curious, what's going on with this dog, and that could get us started a conversation.
We also wanted. I've been trying to, and I don't even know. I don't run unless if I'm running, you better run too because something's chasing me big, right? So You know what I mean? If I'm running your direction, you better get in your car and lock the doors. So, but
There's a bear behind you.
yeah, more than that. So, but there's a lot of runners out there, and there's a lot of programs that where the runners come and pick up a dog and go running through the city with it. I want to get involved in that. I think that would be
Yeah,
great.
that'd be
And I
awesome.
don't. We actually talked about Megan Maui actually asked to bring a treadmill. I don't know whatever happened to that, but I guarantee you, and I said yes, we'd find a home for it. But I guarantee you, we could get people to do it. How many people want to get rid of treadmills that have been
Oh,
sitting in
yeah.
their bedroom? They bought that nice treadmill thinking they were going to run on it, and it became a clothes where all the clothes went, you know?
Unfortunately,
So,
Carolyn, sorry, I did some research on that because that's what my first thought was. And the
yeah.
more research I did, it sounded like that you have to get the ones that are specially made to do
Right.
this with animals. And it's based on the ability to adjust the height at which the animal is tethered to it. Now, I know when you watch
Oh,
what's his face out in California, I mean, he just goes in their home and says, let me use your treadmill with your dog. But we'd have to research it more. But the research I
No,
did do said that you
I
really should get one that you can adjust.
well, you don't
But
want
what
to
if we
tether
could
them
get
anyway.
friendly.
You would have
services
people
to
do
weld
that.
something across the front of them for that?
So I have a friend who raises Malinois, and she uses the treadmill because, of course, if you're breeding and raising Malinois, you need to be exercising them daily, and you have to get a dog version for it to be safe.
Okay.
So you do need to get one of those. I
So like a
understand
slap?
completely,
No, not they
100%
have
what
ones that
Danny.
aren't slat, but
I'm gonna do some
Totally
research.
understand where you're coming from, Danny, and I think we need to be super careful with that. You know that. But the other thing I wanted to break in and say is I've got a hard stop at 8 o'clock
all right.
because I have another conference call.
Yep.
So,
By the way, the treadmills aren't super expensive. I'm looking at them for $500.
yeah.
Dina
Love
said
it.
350. Come on, find us cheaper
Well,
ones.
you got one. I'm looking on Google.
Well, and your thing about the runners thing, there are different groups. Like I think that if you had some like one volunteer that was a Mac like volunteer, if they didn't have to go through the like here in Asheville, they have a program. It's called Outward Bound or something. You can go and hike with animal control volunteer, or it's a not an animal control hike. You just pick up a dog, you take it, and you walk it, and there's someone there that can help you, but you don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of going into town to get your, to that. You're just there to get one dog walked, and you can have somebody to help you. So if you had one runner that was the leader, you could have quite a few people just go on a twice weekly run at Mac. You always meet at this time. There's tons of runners that are. I don't know. I think it's something to think about, not to have to be a full volunteer to be able to exercise animal. If you maybe you pick which animals are appropriate, for that, and that's what they did at the shelter. They were just sort of like, okay, this one's fine, go take him. Think about it.
Yes. We just need them to be better on their leashes.
Oh yeah. Well,
We can work on that though. All right. So with our 9 minutes left of our meeting, I feel like we should. So again, remember April 11th will be our next meeting at 6 p.m. I will send out invites and things for that once I do the meeting minutes. Likely get those back out to you guys in the next couple days at the most. But I think we're all in for pretty good consensus that I think board focus will be assisting with rounding out volunteer program capacities. The additional or new ideas or positions, or assisting our new coordinator in growing foster too, since that is one of our really big pushes for this year is foster for sure. As I do think that'll be a huge piece for us in managing our capacity in the shelter, as well as what we can do additionally, because we don't have as many animals in the shelter all the time, and more of them out in foster homes, where hopefully they're less stressed and either getting adopted by their fosters, or they're helping get them set up to be the good pet that they can be in a home. All right. So I don't know where, Caroline, anything? I feel like we should like, I don't know if there's anything if we, I know we have to do like
I think
subgroups.
I'm just super excited for this board. I think this is an opportunity for this new board to really step up and continue on with what the other board had done. You know, you've set the ground. The other board set the groundwork for what's getting
Same
ready
board.
Not all of you.
We have got new people. Rude.
Same people, but you set the tone and you set the foundation for what's to come. And now's the time. Now's the time to let's build it. Let's make it happen. And I think all the players are coming together. Yes, MAC is short-staffed. That's nothing new, right? But the players are coming together. You're going to have, you know, Danny in her new position. You've got me. You've got John and Tony, little bit further away from us, but they're super supportive. And you've got this new volunteer coordinator position coming in. And what's really cool, the way we're planning to structure with the new position of the extra vet tech position, that's going to actually enable us to do a little bit better vet work. Because right now we have one person trying to work with two vets and it's insanity back there. So I think we're going to be able to do a little bit more with our vets as well. And I'm excited about that. So I just think there's a lot of exciting times coming up and we won't be able to do it without you guys. So you bring it.
So I'll send out, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I'll send out follow-up stuff, like I said, and then also I'm thinking prior to, if I can, April 11th, especially depending on where I've got kind of ideas of where I want Madison to start on different things coming in. So I might reach out and or, you know, send out, you know, introductory thing to Madison for those of you that haven't gotten one, but also depending on what we're working on. I know obviously some of you guys have experience in working with foster-based rescues and stuff, so might pull in, and maybe that's a way that we kind of jump into some of these sideline projects versus trying to go, oh, let's meet every month at this time and maybe not do anything. Like as staff is ready to maybe jump on that particular piece, having you guys like reaching out and going, all right, this is where we're at, let's jump in and does that sound good as a good way to kind of do those projects?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Cool.
Are we going to vote on, because they sent out a lot of ideas, are we going to send that out and let them vote on what the top, what their top
I will send out the meeting minutes, and for some of the bigger stuff, I think if we want to try to do like one of the bigger projects or things this year, we might have to do a vote on that. But as far as like I think volunteer program as a whole is a priority, is just in general, and that'll be, like I said, moving on with, as I and Madison reach out to go, all right, we're working on foster right now, so let's jump in, and this is what I need from the board for foster stuff and whatever. Yes, Heather.
Maybe you could.
I wonder if we shouldn't be considering the foster homes as part of the volunteer program.
Yes, absolutely.
If you are a foster home, you are a volunteer, and you have to do all
of that. I think that's where we're at. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
they've been always a volunteer. The hardest piece is like we'd figure out how we want to track them in our program, because we can actually track them in Chameleon and stuff. So we've got a little bit of like behind the scenes work on our end to figure out on that piece. But they've always been considered, like people that I have that have repeatedly fostered have always been a volunteer. Just their role as foster versus dog walker.
Right.
And
as long as we have that as an option where people who can't come in and volunteer within MAC can
apply to be
a
foster,
volunteer.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Can you send out something for small groups?
Idea.
Sorry, what, Matt?
I think that we should send out like when you're sending out the stuff for this maybe ask which small group, like make up a couple small groups, and so that people can actually work on stuff instead of just waiting until April to kind of figure out what to do.
All right.
So April 11th, I may not be back, just so you know yet.
But you may be.
But I may be. But Danny, because I surprised them all and came back early this last time, but I'm having the other knee replaced. So Danny, though, will happily take charge of this, I'm sure, with Madison by then.
Yep.
Actually, Danny's going to be like shoveling it to Madison, but that's all right.
I'll still be around. All right, cool. Well, if someone wants to move to adjourn, if we don't have anything else.
I move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night.